Welcome, George. Do I have any guests of Rotarians in the room? Jenny?
Thank you, sir. I am pleased to have 3 more members of our student council with us today, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
JC Hoover, 5th grade, and my homeroom teacher is Mr. Reed.
Josh Terry, 5th grade, my homeroom teacher is Mr. Reed. Evan Tonks, Doug Ray, homeroom teacher, Miss Melanie Stiles.
Welcome, we're happy to have you guys today. I know we have a student guest from LR today as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce Gia Smith. Gia is a junior at Lenore Ryan University. She's a psychology major and a creative writing minor. She really loves poetry, and she may tell you a little bit more about poetry here in a minute. She is from Shelby, North Carolina. And among her, in addition to her studies at Lenore Ryan, she is also a member of the College Democrats. She's in an organization called the Distinguished Ladies, and you may mention something about that. I thought that was kind of an interesting group. She's an orientation leader, and next year will be a resident assistant in Fritz Hall, did you say? Price Village, I'm sorry. And she works, not only does she work hard all week at Lenore Ryan, and then she works all weekend at Texas Roadhouse. So for those of you who go there, at any time, give her a good tip. You see. She's also in the process of putting together a constitution for a poetry club, which will focus primarily on spoken word poetry. So we wish you luck with that. I hope that comes along well. I'm gonna let Gia just tell you a little bit about her postgraduate plans. They're kind of interesting, and I'm gonna let her say a few words about that, if you would.
Hi, I'm Gia. As you mentioned, I hope you all are doing well this afternoon. As for post-grad, I have a lot of things planned. First off, I'll be going on a trip to Italy with one of my psychology professors, and I'll be studying a class at the University of Milan. And then following that, I'll be going on a writer's retreat because, like you said, I focus a lot on poetry. And I'll be going to Portobello, Panama. And then, right after I return from there, hopefully I'll be spending a year in just right outside of London at Bournemouth University studying neuropsychology. I have a lot of other things planned too, but they're not really written in stone right now.
So Gia also told me that her long-term career goal is to obtain her PhD in neuropsychology, and she would also hope to get a PhD in African American studies. But I said, what about the poetry? She says, well, I need a job, so I can. So, Gia, we're really pleased to have you here today, and thank you for being our guest. Thank you.
Thank you, we're happy to have you today. We'll give you a book of quotes on heroes for your attendance, and thank you. It sounds like you got a full calendar ahead of you. Do we have any other guests of Rotarians? Do we have any announcements? This might be a first. No announcements today. Nope.
Shameless joke. Just a reminder, the Southwest Elementary School Color Run, which is sort of a 5K. It's not going to be exactly a 5K because there's this really large field that we have to run twice. 3 times would make it a 5K, but I think there would be like funeral services at the end if we did it 3 times. That will be held at 10 o'clock on Saturday, May 14th. We are still looking for corporate sponsors. It's a $100 donation. tax deductible. If your business would like to be on the back of our t-shirts, let me know by next week because we have to get that to the printer. We would love to have Rotarians come and participate. You do not have to run. You may walk, you may crawl, you may hump your way up the hill because that's what I'll do. But we would love to invite you guys to participate in that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, President Mark. Once again, this year, the Salt Block Foundation is hosting a Derby Day party. Tara, when is it? May
7th.
May 7th. This week is the last week you can buy tickets for $30. They go up starting Saturday, actually, to $40 a piece. It is a great, great, great event. You get to get dressed up in seersucker and wear crazy-looking hats. Last year was a huge success. It's at the Salt Block Lawn. Great, great time. Thank you.
The 16th is Saturday, Denim and Diamonds for Children's Advocacy and Protection Center. It's going to be a huge event, bunch of fun, music, raffles, all kinds of stuff's happening. It's going to be great. There's still room. RSVP is nearly full. You probably got to wait for them to know how to get there, probably? Yeah. Okay. Well, so if you need tickets or anything, let us know. Yeah, I got it all.
Thanks, guys. Any other announcements? Did want to remind everybody the sign-up sheet if you want to purchase a Rotary t-shirt is here. A couple people had asked me they are unisex sizes. You can request a female shirt. Just write female shirt next to your size if you want to go, if you don't want the unisex shirt. Also sign up for the Crawdads event which is 2 weeks from today, April 28th. And also, we will not have a Thursday meeting that day. And then on May 19th, we have the Salt Block event that evening, and we'll not have a meeting for lunch that day as well. We still need some volunteers to work with the Interact students on the clean up the highway right around Hickory High School, and that is not this Saturday, but next Saturday, the 23rd, and that is just from 9:59 to 11 o'clock. It's just 1 hour, and we really do need 3 or 4 people. Right now, we only have 1 volunteer, and we do need 3 or 4 people to join us on that, please. Also, Northview Middle School is looking for proctors, as I'm sure a lot of schools are, for May 26th, 27th, and June 1st through the 7th. So if anybody is interested, please contact Northview and let them know. I'm sure they'll get you all the details. I believe they're all morning times is when they need folks. Also, I'd like to thank John Bates and Linda Lutz for coming out to Southwest when was that? Monday. Monday, we finished up the outdoor classroom, or for the most part finished up, and read to the students quite a little bit, or Linda did anyways, and it was quite a show. You should have been there to see that. And Sunshine Committee report.
Oh, I'm honored. That was great. Our standing records show no birthdays in the past or coming week. Is there correction to that record? Anybody willing to admit they have a birthday? All right. One little story in deference to our wonderful guests who got bumped the last time they were here. While working for an organization that delivers lunches to elderly shut-ins, a Rotarian used to take his 4-year-old daughter on his afternoon rounds. The little girl was unfailingly intrigued by the various appliances of old age, particularly the canes, the walkers, and the wheelchairs. One day, the Rotarian found her staring at a pair of false teeth soaking in a glass. As the Rotarian braced himself for the inevitable barrage of questions, she merely turned and whispered, "The tooth fairy will never believe this."
Thank you, Ann. I do have a little bit of sad news to pass along. Susan Allshouse's father has passed away, as I was told, and Debbie Major, who some of you may not know who that is, but Debbie Major she is our bookkeeper for the club. She works in Rusty Eisenhower's office. Her son was in a bad construction accident, and so he's in the hospital. So if you could keep both Susan and Debbie's families in your prayers, I'm sure they would appreciate it. And the retiring police chief has our program today.
I'm not calling an audible
Day, we're gonna go ahead and do the program, like it's on the Rotary spoke. As a police chief, I get to serve on many different boards throughout our community, and all of them are doing great things out there, all the nonprofits. But the one you're going to hear from today is one that's very special. It serves a population that some of us don't really know that's going on in our communities, but it's really important and something that's very well needed throughout our community. The purpose statement for this organization is the Children's Advocacy and Protection Center of Catawba County exists to build community dedication to prevent the prevention of the coordination and response to child abuse and neglect. Adrienne Updike is the executive director of that fine organization. She holds her BS degree from Appalachian State. She's been with the Child Advocacy Centers for over 10 years. She is a facilitator for the multidisciplinary team that meets at the CAPC, and she also is an instructor for Darkness to Lights. Adrienne is going to introduce the main program speaker. So, Adrienne.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for having us here today. It's good to be back and enjoy another lunch with you. I am the executive director at the Children's Advocacy Center, but I wanted to tell you that I'm also a mom. I have an 18-year-old daughter. She's going to graduate from Hickory High, and this weekend is prom. And so we are in the madness of prom, as some of you can imagine, with getting the right dress, getting it to fit, makeup, pictures, all of that. And it's a really great time. And this is to make it the best prom ever. But I know somewhere between tonight and 5 o'clock on Saturday, I'm going to sit down with Bonnie, and I'm going to talk to her about safety. I'm going to talk to her about it's okay to say no. If something happens to you that you don't like what's happening, you tell somebody, you call me, you call your dad, we'll come help you out, we'll believe you, and we'll get help. I've been having that conversation with Bonnie since she's 3 years old. The conversation has changed a little bit with the details. At 3, we were just talking about body parts, and then we talked about touching and about privacy. But it's such an important conversation that I continue to have it with her, even at 18 years old. I want you to know that my passion for protecting kids from sexual and physical abuse goes beyond my daughter and extends to our county in Catawba. And I work with an amazing group of people at the Children's Advocacy Center who know the impact of child sexual abuse when it happens. What happens during the sexual abuse is the messaging is, hey, this is okay for me to touch you, or it's okay for you to touch me, or hey, look at these pictures. It's okay for us to look at these pictures, and don't tell. Because if you tell, you're gonna get in trouble because this is your fault too. Or if you tell, something really bad is gonna happen in your family. Or if you tell, nobody will believe you. So at the CAPC, with our community partners, we give different messages from the moment they walk through the door. We have a beautiful place and we let them know it's safe. Through the forensic interview, we say, it's okay to tell, we believe you. Through the medical exam, we give them the message, we're gonna keep you safe, we're gonna check you out and make sure you're okay. Through our mental health services, the therapist works to change some of those messages that the child believes about what has happened to them. And through the non-offending parent group, we have those conversations about parents, about how we can help. Last year, we had close to 300 children that came through our doors, that the staff and our wonderful partners through the district attorney's office, through law enforcement, mental health and DSS, all working together to change the messages that these kids receive as a result of sexual abuse. And right now, I have the pleasure of introducing one of our staff members, Karen Henson.
Thank you. Okay, can you guys hear me in the back? Is that good? All right. I am the therapist at the Children's Advocacy and Protection Center, and I want to introduce you guys to Danny. Danny's a 7-year-old little boy who is very bright, but might be described as a little quirky. He has some difficulties with social cues and interactions. He obsesses and gets fixated on certain things like crystals and Legos and video games, and he also has a lot of anxiety. Danny didn't have many friends in school or in his neighborhood, but he did have Mel. Mel was a 14-year-old neighbor boy, and Danny loved playing with him. But one day, Danny told his older sister that Mel was playing the touching game with him. Parents responded appropriately and law enforcement became involved. Danny was interviewed at the CAC and referred for mental health therapy. Initially, when I met with Danny's mother to gather background information, she shared that Danny was struggling with sleeping. He was having trouble falling asleep, having trouble staying asleep, having nightmares, sometimes wouldn't be able to stay in his own bed. He would wake up in the middle of the night and run to their bed, screaming. He had a lack of interest and didn't want to leave his house. He didn't want to play with other kids. He didn't even want to go to his grandparents' house. He also had increased anger and would often lash out and say, "Daddy hates me, I know Daddy hates me." Further, Mom reported that he was more distant and had more difficulty interacting with them and was withdrawn overall. She had noted increased anxiety with him at home, increased difficulty at school. I shared with her that what she was describing to me were very common trauma reactions. And as I talked to her about how I could help her with that, she said it makes so much sense. And she began to cry as she said, "I didn't realize just how much he was struggling." Then I met Danny, and he was anxious but talkative and shared a lot of information about his family, home, school, the things that he was interested in. I heard all about those video games that he loves, those Legos, the crystals that he collected. And while Danny shared that he liked school, he said, "But I really wish that moms could go to school because sometimes it's really hard to stay there by myself all day." He also talked about that he had trouble sleeping, and while he talked about the nightmares and running to his parents' house, or room, excuse me. Danny had trouble sitting in my office. Actually, he did not sit. He paced the entire time he was talking to me about all of these things. He talked about the nightmares that he'd had and being scared of the dark. And he admitted being mad a lot, and he acknowledged that he would stomp around the house sometimes and yell when he got mad. When it came time to talk about Mel, all Danny could say is, "He did those things to me and I worry about that a lot." Like many children, Danny was embarrassed and did not want to tell me the things that Mel did. But he wrote it down and he drew a picture. Slide it. Okay, well, while she's working on that, because we wanted to share with you the picture that Danny drew. Danny talked about, after his drawing says it all, and you'll see that in a second. And again, Danny shared that he worried a lot about the things that Mel did to him. Danny talked about Mel being his friend, but then that Mel was not his friend because he did those things to him. He shared that Mel was older than him and he was scared of him. I want you all to take a second and look at Danny's picture that he drew of what Mel did to him. And it may be hard to see in the back. So Danny talked about being scared of Mel, but then he also said, "But I'm not scared of him," because he couldn't be scared of him. He wanted to believe that he could have stood up to this older boy and stand up for himself and believe in himself. Danny was able to share with me all of his concerns, including, does this mean that I'm gay? Is this gonna happen to me again? What if other people find out? Danny and his parents have actively participated in treatment. Danny enjoys listening to books about personal safety and boundaries, and he was so relieved when I shared with him that other kids have had similar things happen, and the feelings that he was having were similar to many other kids who had been abused. He's learning coping tools to help him manage his anxiety, and he will talk about how he practices taking deep breaths at home and using 4-3-2-1, which is a grounding tool that I teach kids so that he can manage to stay in the classroom. Danny's parents are also actively participating in learning tools to help support Danny and process their own response to the abuse. He enjoys having his dad come in at the end of the session so that Danny can tell him all of the things that he learned that day. He's learning to manage his anxiety. At this point, he's no longer leaving school sick. He enjoys going every day and staying in the classroom and is excited to tell me that he's better able to focus and do the work that he needed to do and only think about school when he's in school. He's also able to talk about the abuse more openly now. We don't have to draw pictures. He is able to use his words and talk about what Mel did to him. He is clear that he didn't do anything wrong, that it should not have happened to him, and that he is okay. While he remains scared of the dark and has lots of other anxiety, he's making steady progress. We'll continue to work on processing those thoughts and feelings that he has and the worries and helping him to manage his feelings and his behaviors while also correcting any thinking errors that he may have. Danny still has some trouble sitting still in my office, but it's a lot better than it used to be. And in a recent session, as we were leaving my office walking down the hall, he turned and he looked at me and he said, "You calm me down." Both Danny and his parents are thankful for the treatment and support that they've received, and they believe that he can be okay and move beyond what has happened to him. And he is doing that as I stand here speaking to you today. So what do I want you to take away from meeting Danny today? I want you to know that the effects of trauma can be significant in disrupting one's functioning and their mood and their interactions with others. But treatment can help remediate those effects, and it does when children participate. The second thing that I want you to know is that being able to provide on-site services at the CAPC allows us to connect with children and families at a very critical time for them. And they're able to continue to come back to a place that's familiar and comfortable to them, and I think that increases their kind of buy-in and willingness to participate in treatment. The third thing that I'd like you to know is that I'm honored to work with the children that I work with at the CAPC, in part because I know that they struggled through their abuse alone. And when they walk through those doors and disclose to us, they no longer have to do that alone. It is our responsibility to provide them with the support and the tools that they need to move beyond what's happened and to no longer feel so alone. So for Danny and the many other kids that we provide the opportunity to know, for Danny and the other kids that we provide their opportunity to no longer be alone, your support of the CAPC directly impacts the children that we see every day. So thank you.
Do we have any questions?
Yes.
What happened to the 14-year-old? I used to work with juvenile sex offenders, and one of the saddest things to me is that young people who sexually offend other young people have usually been sexually abused themselves. What do you guys do about that?
Well, we have a great response to not only the victim's family, but also when there's an adolescent with sexual offending behavior, to provide services and direct treatment in that area. We work together as a team, all of us, law enforcement, district attorney, victim advocacy, mental health, and medical, to really talk about what both sides need for treatment and for healing. Yes, I'm sorry.
How many therapists do you have on staff, and what are the primary modalities of treatment that you use?
I am it. I'm the only therapist that we have on staff, and I used primarily an evidence-based approach called trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. And it really, if you break that down, cognitive are our thoughts, behaviors are behavior. Trauma-focused means we are talking about the trauma. Every time that the child comes into my office, it's referenced in some way, and we really spend time to help them understand the connection between their thoughts and their feelings, and that's why I talked about correcting thinking errors. in being able to help them give themselves positive, accurate messages about what's happened to them and process all that they went through and the trauma that they have. I also have just recently been trained in eye movement desensitization reprocessing, which is another evidence-based trauma treatment. And so I do what the kids need.
Thank you for your question. We could keep Karen very full, her schedule very full, and we do. And so in looking at expanding services, that's definitely an area that we are looking at. Yes?
I have might be more of a question for Tom, but sometimes when I read articles in the paper that report sexual abuse and it's the conviction of the offenders, the adult age offenders, the sentence never seems to be appropriate. Like 18 months, 16 months. I mean, I don't know if that's just the numbers that catch my eye or if I guess it's more of a question of what's an appropriate sentence sometimes for this folks.
North Carolina has has structured sentencing, so it's based on the crime that somebody's been convicted for and any past convictions, and those add up to some points. Part of the process that the CAPC goes through with the multidisciplinary team is we talk about all the facets of the healing process and the treatment process, but also the prosecution. Sometimes we look at what is best. There may be several charges, but we don't want to further traumatize a child going through the court process. So getting a plea on a certain offender may be the best outcome. Trust me, we would love to have all of them put away for a very long time, but part of that is, okay, what's best for the whole process. So we may end up pleading that to a lesser, or to one offense instead of 3 offenses. That person gets sentenced, hopefully rehabilitated, and is a convicted sex offender. So now they're registered as a sex offender. So some of those sentences, of course, looks small to us, but it's a structured sentencing type process in the court system.
Other questions? Yes.
How long is the therapy available to the child, or like if the session time is over or whatever, if it reoccurs, are they able to come back as long as they're still within a certain time frame maybe?
It really varies. The length of treatment varies for every child because for some children, whatever incident brought them into the CAC may be the only traumatic thing that's happened to them, and there's lots of other resilient, positive factors, protective factors that are in place that reduce that amount of treatment that's needed. Unfortunately, I would say probably the majority of the children that I work with, this is not the first traumatic event or first disrupting event in their life, and so treatment can be much longer than that. I've seen kids for a handful of sessions, and I've seen them for years. What I tell them all is that I expect that at some point throughout their developmental process, they will likely need additional therapy. And if they're around here and want to call me, they can call, and if I'm there, I will see them. And if they're somewhere else, I will refer them somewhere else. I have had multiple kids that have gone away for a while and things have happened, and not necessarily other traumatic things, but just development again, and they will call and say, can I come back in? And usually those are shorter, like we call them booster sessions, and then they're gone again. But I also, because of being a nonprofit, because of the grants that we are able to operate under, I've seen some kids that have even turned 18 because of my history with them.
Yes?
It's a question probably again for Tom, but how many sex offenders on the list in Catawba County? That's a good ballpark. I have no idea.
Over 200, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I believe it's over 200. I'm not sure the exact number, but.
Do you feel there's a close tabs on these people, or as they're coming in from other counties, do they register? Do you know? I mean,
Well,
I would think
they
it's
have to,
really
they have to
vague.
check in when they move. Now, obviously, some do not follow that process, or they move within the county and don't follow that process. Those folks are aggressively prosecuted for failure to or change the address as a sex offender. We work very closely in Hickory with the sheriff's office if we get a report, or we actually, at Hickory, we go out every quarter and check to make sure they're still at their residence where they register. If not, we will do a report. The charging comes from the sheriff's office, but in Hickory, we monitor very close. But I think it was around 240 some a while back.
So, yes,
You are a nonprofit.
We
What
are.
are your funding sources?
we have some federal funding, we get some funding from United Way, we get funding from some foundations, and then just grants that are in the community. And we raise money, we do fundraisers, and I think that's what Michael was talking about. We
Yes,
have
did I
our
mention
fund-
there's a Denim and Diamonds?
Another dollar, Michael.
Yeah, that's how we get our funding.
I gotta get near hearing aid, I'm sure that you covered it all.
Yes.
Are most of your clients referral from the court system, or do you also have from community sources?
Our referrals have to come through law enforcement and the Department of Social Services. It's a crime, law enforcement has to be involved. It's a child safety issue, DSS has to be involved. So after the report is made, they go out and initiate, and then they call us and say, we need to schedule an interview, we need to schedule a medical exam, need to talk about mental health services and a support group for the parents. Yes?
And I guess this would also be based on the cooperation of the parents, correct? And whether I know that it's probably unthinkable, but I'm sure that there are some parents that don't want to cooperate or bring their children in.
I think you're absolutely right in your statement that it's very difficult for some of the parents. We have our officers and DSS go through training specifically to work with child abuse victims and their family. We have a wonderful victim advocate, so when they come in the door, she connects with them immediately and engages them in services. And so we work really hard to get the parent involved and keep them involved. We know that that's of primary importance for what happens next with that child.
Can I add something to that? One of the first things that I do with families, parents, caregivers, whomever the adult is talk to them about avoidance and the fact that initially lots of parents believe we just won't talk about this, we won't think about it, we'll get back to normal and everything will be okay. And what I tell them is, while it may seem like that works in the short term, what I know from my years of experience and what I know from research is that that does not work in the long term. And while for some that's new information, usually I get to that part of what I just said to you about what I know about avoidance is it doesn't work, and they're nodding their heads. Because many parents and caregivers that I work with often disclose their own abuse to me and say, you are the first person I've ever told. So they know firsthand that avoidance does not work, because often that's what they have done for years. But you're absolutely right, that parent feeling the need and being understanding the benefits of treatment is important up front.
Yes?
This question is probably more for Tom, but every once in a while, you thought you were going to get to retire.
Yes.
Every once in a while you hear about on the news, or you read something in an article somewhere about maybe an 18-year-old high school senior and his 16 or 17-year-old girlfriend, and what was consensual between the two of them suddenly becomes a legal jeopardy for the person that's 18. Exactly how is that handled so that I guess that it's fair to all concerned?
Well, any report of a sexual assault we take very seriously, and we investigate that thoroughly. Obviously, when it comes down to one or the other both saying, one saying it's consensual, one saying it's not, we try to gather all the facts we can and then present it to the district attorney's office and kind of figure out where the prosecution needs to go, if it needs to be prosecuted. Sometimes there's not enough evidence to go further with it, but sometimes, it is, and we go forward with it, but just based on the case itself, it's case-by-case basis.
I'm thinking more about where I guess mutually consensual.
And the parent, and you're talking about if
Yes.
the parent gets involved and
The
they're not
parent, yeah,
happy
you
that.
hear about that, you know, and all of a sudden you got a 18-year-old high school senior who's in trouble for what he and his 17 or 18-year-old girlfriend did in the backseat of their,
Or 15-year-old.
or, well, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, age does, age does matter, but, you know, it comes back to consent, depending on the age. If, you know, we'll interview both of them separately, and then if, you know, the same thing as consent and the age difference is not there, then, you know, it's not a crime, so. But we do all that investigation and push that to the district attorney's office, and it's ultimately their decision to prosecute or not.
Well, what if they do both consent, but the age difference is there?
Then it's a crime.
Then that's
But they may,
Yeah.
but they may still choose to.
And then they still may not choose to prosecute,
Yeah.
depending on the witness and those type things.
So in closing, I just want to say a couple of things. When a report comes in, we have a great team in the community that we work with, and we have a great team at the Children's Advocacy Center to respond to the report of child sexual abuse. But as adults, we have a responsibility to respond as well. If you haven't heard it before, the Darkness to Light prevention training is targeted at teaching adults 5 steps that you can take and learn and apply. It changed the way I raised my daughter, and it will impact the children in your lives if you apply these 5 steps, because we, adults here in Catawba County, are responsible for the prevention, for the reporting, and the protection of our kids. So thank you so much for having us here today.
Ladies, very informative program, and something that I think if we would be more open about it, we'd not only be able to prevent more, but hopefully be able to treat them more. I'm sure there's a lot that go unreported that we're still trying to reach. But as a little thank you, I want to give you each a book on quotes on thanks. So thank you for informing us today. Pulling double duty today, Ann Williams, come on down. We took in $58 for a total of $863. And we have 40 cards left. And 2 jokers. While they're drawing out a number, let me remind you, Alzheimer's buckets, do like Michael back there and put in a buck or 2 of the folding change or change in there. Last 3 are 4, 5, 7.
My mistake. It's not mine.
Oh, Rich.
Past President Rich. Yes, sir.
Pressure's on. Free
2 clubs, free lunch.
Thank you, sir.
I do, and here's my money. I want to put a shameless plug in. Your 2015 South Atlantic League champions and 6-1 Crawdads are home tonight. Our first home game of the season at 6 o'clock. We're on for the next 7 days. So let's close with the 4-way test.
7 days, that's $7.
I'll make it happen. Is it the truth of the things we think, say, and do?
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill, better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?